Okay, cool. So much time we've spent doing our planning phase, right? Setting up our target markets, creating our schedule, what resources we're going to be using, how we're going to be pulling our list. So now where we are in this process is we've got to start making these offers. That is what I've been pushing all this month. The last 2 weeks, that is the most important thing I want you guys focusing on, the most important metric for you guys. Now, some of you guys are a little bit newer. Then we're kind of getting you there. You're not quite in the actual making offers, I guess, segment yet. But in order to do that first, we really have to get this comps and analysis thing down. And a lot of you guys are still struggling with this. So today we're just going to run a couple of comps just to give you guys some more practice. If you need more, remember that you can always go back into Wholesaling with Mike University. Not only is this taught in the curriculum, but I teach it both ways, right? So one is going to be the more long form, how you actually run your comps as if you were a cash buyer. And it's set up that way so you can really understand what a cash buyer is looking for, how they're going to analyze the deals, how they're going to break down the comps, not just looking necessarily for similar properties, but breaking down the square footage and exactly how you run your comps. Now, as wholesalers, when we're going into this, there are basically two ways we're going to be sourcing these deals. When you're sourcing off-market deals, right? You'll need to know how to run your comps, but you're not doing that beforehand. That all starts with having a conversation with the seller and getting them by using the scripts, using your overcoming objections material to get them to give you an offer price first. And again, there's several psychological loops that we go through to get them there. However, when we are doing bulk offer making, volume offer making, we have to hit this sweet spot where in this case, we're looking at on-market properties where you do have to make the offer first and we have to make them in bulk. It's a very high volume strategy. So we've got to make them as fast as possible. And we've also got to be fairly accurate. Now, one of the major misunderstandings that people have is they think, okay, you make the offer and then it's hit or miss. And one thing I really want to stress to you guys is that is ideal, sure, right? When you make an offer and they're motivated and they're ready to take your offer, that's great. But in a lot of cases, making that offer or even just that first initial inquiry where you're talking to people, the end goal is not necessarily to try and get the deal done there. Like if you can, absolutely. But really, a lot of times it's just a foot in the door. And where a lot of you guys are struggling, you make the offers and then the feedback to me is, Mike, it's not working. They didn't take the offer. Oh, this never work. It won't work. No. An analogy I'd like to make is your offer, in many cases, if it does not get accepted the first time, or if there's a little bit of pushback, think of the offer more like a cover letter, okay? You submit a really great cover letter, that's not necessarily going to get you a job. What that's going to do is get the interviewer, right, to look at your resume and to start a conversation with you. And at that point, that's where you get to really talk about your skill set, and that's what gets you the job. So a lot of times when you are sending these offers, you do have to make sure that you're following up. If someone says no, you need to ask them, well, why not? What are they looking for? What's the seller looking for? We're talking direct to the seller. What are your concerns, right? Sometimes they might say no because they're nitpicking at certain things that you can easily overcome, be it an earnest money deposit, inspection period, the actual numbers. And you have to get good at going back and forth and really negotiating down and kind of while you're in the deal, massaging this deal to make sure that it works. So I would say kind of as a class, right, is this specific class, a little bit behind there, okay? Every session that you guys come to, you should be coming to me with questions. You should be coming to me with responses from sellers. You should be coming to me with responses from agents. You should be showing me contracts. And that's where the real value comes in. That's where you can come to me and say, Mike, here's a contract. You take a look at it. Mike, I offered $300,000. Is that appropriate? Is that too high? This is the type of feedback, and this is where you're going to get the real value of us working together. But we're not quite there yet for many of you. So we still need to work on this comping and this analysis. And a big part of this is remembering, listen, sometimes you're going to get beautiful comps, right? Especially in these developments where you have, let's say, a land developer, they come in, they buy up a subdivision, Lennar Homes, probably one of the more famous ones. And basically they just put cookie cutter homes right next to each other. So now when you're looking at your comps, you're comparing strictly apples to apples. You're looking at the exact same things. The houses look the same. Everything looks the same. That's great. That's fantastic. But it won't always happen that way. So in those cases, what you have to do is you have to look for things that are similar, the most similar. So a couple different ways we do that. One, we're going to make sure that we're in the same subdivision. Okay. That's so first you want to look at, sorry, start over here. Subdivision is ideal, right? And subdivision is basically how your municipality, the city is kind of cut up, right? Then we're going to be looking at distance. Now, oftentimes, distance, if it's something's really close, it's in the same subdivision, but not always, because subdivisions can be cut up by things. Usually they're big things, bodies of water, major highways, railroad tracks, and things like that. So we want to make sure the distance is similar. Then the year built, as close to our subject property as possible. So ideally, right, we want to be looking at properties that are less than a quarter mile away. Now, if those properties are more than that, well, we can't just make up comps. We want to look for some other ones. But if not, if we have to use a property 0.3 miles away, 0.4 miles away, then so be it, right? Just to give ourselves a general idea of what this property is worth and how much we want to offer. Now, from there, we want to make sure it's built in the same year close to the same year. So if it's built in, your property is built in 1950, you want to be comparing things to 1950, but at least within, say, a decade. Even that's a little far, but if your property is built in 1950, you can look at comps from 1945. You can look at comps from 1960, right? So we're looking for things that are similar. And then finally, you can just take a look and see, is the property similar just visually, right? So if we're looking at a concrete block house, I don't necessarily want to compare that to a mobile home, a condo, a house that's built with wood frame, right? Now, if some of that happens, there's some assumptions you can make. Let's say if I'm looking at a 3-2 that's concrete block versus a 3-2 that's wood frame, I'll know that in all likelihood, mine's probably worth a little bit more. And these are some of the assumptions you can make. But you really want to be looking for things that are similar. And so the example I wanted to bring today is student this week is looking at a property and he just offered too high. And I told him, man, I'm probably not going to be able to sell this. And he's kind of discouraged. But I'm going to show you kind of where the analysis fell apart and why, why you just need to get a little bit more accurate with this and how some of this stuff really is just common sense. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that up. I am going to be demonstrating using RealFacts. But at the same time, pretty much any CRM will be showing you the same things. And people are always asking, what's the best CRM, the best? Listen, different CRMs sometimes have access to different comps, right? And different information. You should not always be thinking the grass is greener on the other side, right? And, this system always has better comps. It doesn't work that way. So I'm going to start using this, but if you're in a different system, some of you guys already have Flipster or whatever, it doesn't really matter. And then if the comps are not appropriate within RealFacts, I'll show you some free sites that you can use that can give you a better idea for your comps. All right. So this property was, if I can find this here, 6216 North 44th. Okay, so this is a property in Tampa. Now, remember, if we're looking for things, ideally, we want to be looking for things that either have signs that the seller is motivated due to a particular situation and or the property is physically damaged. When a property is physically damaged, that's where you make your money, okay? So, the first thing I'm going to look at is an on-market property. So we're going to look, is there, the first question we're going to answer, is there potential for a deal? Meaning, is there anything about this that makes me think that money can be made? Well, if we look at the remarks here, the first thing it says, motivated sellers. Okay, great. That means I continue with my analysis down the process. Now, if it said beautiful home, completely redone, new central AC, new roof, new appliances, new granite countertops, if I see that in the remarks, I'm just going to go to the next property. I'm not going to look at it. It's not going to be any money to be made for a cash buyer. But so far, okay, motivated seller. And now they're telling you about all these different features. Now, this is pretty standard for the retail world. See, the way realtors are trained to sell properties is they're trained to deal with owner occupants. So when you're when you're trying to sell something to someone that they're going to live in, you want to use a lot of imagery and you want to make them picture themselves in that property. So you're going to say things like, imagine yourself waking up on this beautiful patio and going out and sitting by the lake and having your coffee. Investors don't buy like that. Investors don't care about that. Investors want to know what's wrong with it, how much repairs does it need, how much is it worth, how much money can I make? Okay. So when you see all this stuff, which a lot of students kind of make the mistake of saying, okay, I can sell it. I can use this same description and sell it to my buyer. Most of your buyers do not care. They just want to know, what about this property can I make some money with? So far, what I'm seeing here is motivated sellers. That sounds good. Now, oftentimes that alone doesn't give you enough information. And so ideally, if I click on a property like this, what I really would like to see is I want to see this thing really messed up. I want to see holes in the drywall. I want to see fiberglass coming out the walls. I want to see mold, in a couple rooms or something like that. So we can click here, take a look at some of these pictures. The landscaping, relatively well done, nicely done. So again, it's ideal. If it's ugly, it means they can't keep up with the maintenance. Okay, so this looks pretty nice. And for that reason, I'm not super excited about this property, despite them saying motivated sellers. Okay, but we'll take a look. Okay, that kitchen floor could be redone. This type of kitchen, it's decent. You can probably keep it that way for a rental. So it would work for some buyers, but your average rehabber is probably going to want to come in and redo that. So let's just take a look. Okay, yeah, it needs some flooring. All right, so it needs a little bit of work. So now I'm thinking, okay, there's some potential to do a deal here. Great. Now that I've established that, question one, is there potential to make a deal here? Yes. Then we move to step two. Okay, what is the property worth? What is the ARV, after repaired value, meaning what would this property be worth if it was in good condition? So we want to go over to our comps and start taking a look. And the first thing that's going to jump out at me here is distance-wise, this is close, this is close, this is close enough. These are a little bit far, so they're still usable, but they're not ideal, okay? So what happens is this particular student said, well, this one is the closest, so I'm going to click this one, and this one is the next closest, so I'll pick this one. And the property, 405, this is the sold price of the comp, and this property is 395, okay? So on average, we can say this property is worth about $400,000, right? And so he popped it into the formula, $400,000. We're going to times that by 70%. Now, remember, we still have to get this thing accepted. So the repairs don't look too bad. If it needed, let's say, any of these types of repairs, we would have to, again, this is just for the quick comp analysis. If it was anything major, we would also have to subtract that from the number. But 400,000 times 0.7. So that means a cash buyer would see this is a good deal if it's around $280,000. It is in Tampa. It's a good high demand area. So typically, technically, if we follow that max allowable offer formula, you're going to be looking at 280, right? Ideally. Then minus, it's probably a light repair, so minus about 15,000. Then if you want to make $10,000, you minus that. So we do minus 15, minus 10, right? So ideally want to be about 255, but because we're in a good location, it's got good demand, high demand, we can be okay with putting in a more competitive offer at 280, right? And hopefully getting this property under contract. So next, what is the asking price? These guys were asking 320. So he made the offer at $280,000, essentially asking him to come down 40,000. Now, that sounds pretty good, but there's one major problem here. Did anyone catch it? Did anyone see that problem? And let me open up the chat here. Did anyone understand why $280,000 might be problematic for this property? Crickets. Guys, give me crickets here. All right. I'm going to have to spoil this for you, but last call for this. 3, 2, 1. Okay. The reason why that's problematic is because when we look at the comps, despite these first two properties being close, they're built in the year 2023. Your subject property is built in the year 1959. So this property is built almost 65 years after these two comps. So even though he was, had the right mindset, this is probably just an oversight. You cannot do that. They're not the same. And in RealFacts, if you want, you can even click on these. A lot of times you can see the actual property, right? So you can see what it looks like and get an idea of doing that. You can see if it's actually really nicely done, if that's why it's sold for so much higher. And as you can see, very different looking, right? So you could keep that number in the back of your mind as maybe like, okay, the potential for the neighborhood might be pretty good, but a buyer's not going to buy based on that. They are going to buy off of is the comps, the actual comps. So if we go back here, we're looking at our comps. These two are not appropriate, so I'm not going to use those. Now this one's a little bit further, but look, we're looking at 44th Street. This is on 48th, and this is built in 1962, right? Your subject property is built in 1959. The square footage is similar, you know, not ours is a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And this is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom. This here is a 3-2. So now we say, okay, ours has 1 more bathroom, so it could be worth slightly more than that. But this one is 221,000. Big difference from 400,000, and that's why this deal did not work for him. But here, it's not quite similar enough for me to be super confident that that's the actual comp. Now, a lot of times you're using RealFacts. In most cases, it has comps that will work for you, right? But in this case, it simply does not. So what we want to do is look at some of the other, I said free sites to show you where you can run your comp. So again, first question, is there potential? Second question, what is this worth? So based on what I'm seeing, again, I can't use these two because the year built's too far out. I can use this one. It's giving me 221, but I don't have a secondary comp to really back that up. You know, 77, it's a little bit far. It's a little bit further out on the year built. 64, obviously, this is some type of outlier. It might be an apartment building, you know, 3.8 million. So common sense, that's not a good comp. This one's built in 2001. It's not far enough. This is built in 78. So if I had to go off of this, I'm thinking this may be 221, but it's not enough data, enough justifiable information. So let me go ahead and check some other sites. So these sites here, I just have them saved as bookmarks. These are all free sites that you can use. Let me go back and copy this. That you can use to try and figure out what your property is worth. So all you do, you should save these and bookmark them all. You can find them by basically just Google searching. I'll give you the names in a second, but they are also listed out in the program. So you can just save them to your bookmarks one time. And this should be very, very fast process, right? So one, I'm just going to dump that into Zillow. Okay. This next site is the Bank of America Home Estimator. If you just go to Google and just type in Bank of America Home Estimator, this site pops up. We want to make sure we go to home value. Okay. Click that there. Boom. That's going to search. Chase is another one that you can use. Okay, realtor.com. Check that out. Privy, this is a paid one. So I do use this. If you have it, you can use it, but you don't need it. And the last one is going to be Propwire. Again, a free resource. So we'll click here. So really quickly, I'm going to go through this very fast, but essentially we have to remember that even though there is a Zestimate present, we never use that. That's because it's automated algorithm. It may pull in good comps, but it may not. It can pull in some of those comps built in 2023. It pulls in, you know, maybe some apartments, some condos. We don't really know. But what we can do is we can scroll down and we could take a look at actual sold homes. And that's going to give you a much better idea of what you're looking for. Now, this stuff, you don't use this in any type of formula. Nearby homes, you know, off market or maybe listed prices. But if you scroll over, you can see sold. Right. And so this looks like it's probably a vacant lot. That's not going to be appropriate for us, but you can keep scrolling through until you start finding things. Right. This one was 44th Avenue. It looks like an empty lot. So again, let's see, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Maybe not. That does look a little bit low to me. It could perhaps be a wholesale deal or something like that. But if you're not finding great comps on Zillow, it's actually not the first place I start. It's just my web browser's in that order. But before we dive into that, let's go ahead and take a look at maybe the Bank of America site. So again, we do not rely on these algorithm generated values, but we can go down and we want to look here for proximity first, and then we want to look at, you know, year built, beds, baths, things like that. So this is our subject property. So I can see here first, the closest one I'm going to be looking at is number 3, right? That's right here. And then if anything, despite proximity, if there were like a massive highway around here, like let's say number 2 was on the other side of this, I would have to weight that significantly lower because it's likely in a different subdivision. Subdivision you won't see on this particular screen, but there's still enough data here where we can look at these things, right? So number 3, again, the closest, 0.18, built in 1984, still a little bit far since our subject property is at 59, but now that's at 325. So again, we're significantly lower than that 400,000 that we were initially looking at. Now this is too far. And these are way too far. 0.69 miles is too far. So we're not really getting good data there. So the next thing we can do, let's check out realtor.com. And realtor.com has this new, I guess you'd say, functionality with their values that they recently added. And let's see if I remember what it is. This is called the real estimate, right? And this is nice because, again, you have to take it with a grain of salt because it is, again, one of these computer generated algorithms, but it does come from 3 separate third parties. So here you'll see their estimates are 343, 305, and 312, right? So that's something, again, I just kind of keep in the back of my mind. What I'm really looking for are the individual houses. So next, we're going to go to Propwire. This is a property. It's popped up. And right up top here, we want to look at comps, okay? So we're here at comps, and then we want to just change these filters. So ideally, 0.25 miles first. Sold in the last year is fine. And then I want this year built to be within the last 10 years, okay? And now when I do this, you'll see, okay, finally, we got some better stuff coming up. Now, a lot of times, like I said, you can find this stuff inside of RealFacts, so that's completely fine. But here, if we look here, okay, this, our subject property is 44th Street. This is 43rd, 44th. So these are all within a quarter mile, right? These sold within the last year. 3-bed, 2 bathrooms, that's great. And they're all built within 10 years, right? So it doesn't give you as clear of a picture as in RealFacts, but now I can see there's nothing in here that's in the $400,000 range, right? So if I'm seeing things 150, 183, okay, these are 2 bedrooms, so I assume they're going to be worth a little bit less. So not really the most appropriate, but it does give me intel about what I'm looking for. And then here, this is the most similar thing we have here, and it's sold for 280, which just goes back to kind of justify where we were in the beginning. And then 216, there's nothing that justifies anywhere in here that that property is worth 400,000. So a more appropriate offer for that, knowing now that 280 is probably closer to the ARV, you'd probably need to have this under contract closer to 220. Now you could probably even stretch going up to maybe 250 or so. But again, 220 ideal, up to 250. Now, again, I'm not seeing anything here that lets me think these folks are motivated enough to give you that much of a discount. Although, you know, we're looking at 73 days on market, which means for 73 days, other buyers, other investors, people looked at this and said, no, it's overpriced. Okay, so that's kind of how we want to look at these comps, and we want to be doing our justification of what we want to offer. So I guess really quickly, what I'll do is I'll do one more example where we look at maybe comping a property. So I'm just going to do a random search. All right, I can go to, let's say, I don't know, Broward County. Okay, so Broward County, I'm going to be looking for single family homes. Let's find for sale, active, pre-foreclosures, and maybe if we have any that are pre-foreclosed and vacant. Okay, so we got a couple results here. I'm just going to go with the first one. Okay, now this I see, as soon as I see this nice, I'm not interested. Go back to my results. I'm going to look at the next thing. Okay, that is a $6 million property, so I'm also not interested. Let's see. Let's check this one out here. 300 and change. Okay, looks like we've got probably some staging, some photoshopping. Okay, I mean, not bad, but nothing showing me that this is really... there's a deal to be done. See, compare this fully renovated home. Not interested. Okay, so let's go back and try. Let's remove this filter. And for sake of easier searching, I'm going to look at a price between... Okay, now this is usually more of what I kind of look for. Cash, let's start with the remarks. Cash only, great sign, okay? This doesn't even, they're not even looking for like an HOA, I'm sorry, a FHA standard buyer. It's got no central AC. The utilities are off. All great things, okay? Now we want to look at some pictures. I can't see them right here. That's okay. If this ever happens, it happens from time to time. You just click this button right here, and you can see the pictures on realtor.com. So now we have an idea of what this property looks like. Now we can see no central AC. So that means if a buyer puts in central AC, they can increase the value, right? So that's good. That's how they make their money. You can see this needs to be painted. I got some chipping on the outside. You know, the windows look very old, so those probably need to be replaced. So now I'm looking for opportunities to improve on the property. That means I can sell this. These type of ceilings, this is old school. Any rehabber will come in and redo this. This looks pretty bad for the most part, okay? Tile floors, those actually look pretty good. What's up, buddy? All right, the kitchen. These cabinets, maybe they look really bad, poorly installed. They're not really lining up. Maybe they could be salvaged, but probably not. Old school appliances. So basically, we look down here, there's a lot of potential in this property, okay? Stuff's all broken up. If we look in here, look, everything's really dirty. So this is a fantastic property that you would want to make an offer on, right? Maybe even a little hoarding stuff going on, like the ceilings, right? Broken light fixtures, all this stuff. Very, very good potential. Okay, so now let's go back into real facts. So one, is there a deal to potentially be made here? The answer is yes, absolutely there is. Now, number two, what is this property worth, right? Well, the listing price on this is $315,000. Let's see what the comps say. So first thing we're looking at, distance-wise, we've got a lot of comps close by. So one that tells me there's demand in the area, which is very, very good. It also tells you I'm probably going to have good comps. Now, one cool secret about RealFacts is you can filter by subdivision, and the properties in the same subdivision are going to be the best comps that you have. Again, assuming that it's the same year and all that, but usually that is the case. So subdivision, we just say yes and filter. Okay, so there's only one in the same subdivision. That's fine. That just means it's going to be our best comp. So right now I'm looking at 0.09, very, very close, right? Built in 1954. This is built in 1954. We got a 2-bedroom. This is a 2-bedroom. 900 square feet is what we're looking at, 824. So this tells me this property is probably worth $278,000. And these guys are asking, I think, $315,000. So they're overpriced right now. But now we can look at some additional comps. So let's take that filter off for subdivision. And now we have all these other ones. So again, we'll look at this one. This one's built in 52. That's pretty close. Close here. 3-bedroom. We can still use that though. Sold price $345,000. Okay, this one built in 53, $255,000. This is built in 52, $330,000. So we're getting a bit of a range here, but there's still some consistency to this. So these 250s and 270s could be outliers. They could be properties that were maybe sold by owner. There could be other wholesale deals. We can click. We can kind of see what was going on or why that is, right? And we have data. This is data about the comp here. But again, for the sake of the exercise, we're not going to go that deep into it. This is close, 54, 53. So this is giving me a pretty good look at the neighborhood, right? And what this is going for. So I can pretty much use all of these. And then we're going to hit this button, calculate value. And we're getting to about 312. Let's call it 315, right? Now, I look at this and I say, well, potential-wise, right, I may be able to get a little bit more because we do have some things that are slightly higher. That being said, this is a 3-bedroom. That's why it's higher. 3-bedroom, a little bit higher. Oh my gosh, this guy. I got a visitor. Boy. Sorry. Go sit down. Cat's wild. All right. I lost my train of thought now. 2 bedrooms. Okay, so we're looking at about 315. It needs work. It's been on market 66 days. Nobody took it. Everyone's saying, the market is saying that this is overpriced. Okay, so we're going to come back to our calculator. Let's call it 315. So ideally, a buyer would want to see this at 0.7. All right, so they want to pay about 220 for this. Now we know that needs repairs, but again, if they're asking 315 and I go in at 220 minus, that's about a moderate repair, right? The square footage, it's small, so moderately repaired on this small square footage, maybe about 25K. So we're looking at about 195, maybe 200. Now, in this case, if they're asking 315 and you make an offer for $115,000 less, they're probably not going to accept that. So what I would do on a property like this is, one, put into your follow-up system. Maybe they will reduce the price. Or two, I can take a little bit of a more aggressive approach, right? Less conservative, and offer about 250. So if I do 250, I know I'm a little bit high, right? But I also know that I've included these into my conservative numbers at 255, 278. So if I remove those, I know the potential for this property, even though I think the value is at 315, it could be a little bit higher, right? It could be up to 320. If I pull this out, my point is I can justify this to a cash buyer, say maybe this is worth about 320. Now, even at 250, I'm still going to be high, but at least that's more reasonable that a seller might accept. And then during my inspection period, I can oftentimes negotiate with my seller and get them to come down a little bit more once you're already, you have the commitment, you're working through the process. You might be able to get them to come down a little bit more, and you might be able to get a cash buyer who will come up a little bit higher because there is a lot of demand in the area. So something like this, I would feel comfortable putting out an offer at about 250,000. Does that sound good? Does that make sense to you guys? Are you guys understanding this? Do you have questions about this? Let me know, please. Like I said, we'll do I'm going to do another training session on this. Make sure all the emails get out and things like that so everyone can be in our group. But today I'm finding that a lot of you guys, your questions throughout the week were really about the comps and analysis and what types of offers to make. All right, so questions on this. You guys can raise a hand, you can jump on your speaker, or you can type it in the chat. Okay, cool. I'm glad that was helpful. So that's some of the stuff. Like I said, every call will be a little bit different. We'll tackle different issues. Usually, there's more or less an outline, a rhyme or reason, the process that I go, but along the way, people get stuck. And so the idea is to go as far as you can in the process, and then you're going to get stuck. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. You're going to get to, I don't know what to offer. I don't know what to say. And that's the point where I need all of you guys to get to. So you bring those to this call, right? Which is primarily here for feedback, for support, for Q&A. And once you do that, then I'll be able to tell you, okay, this is why it's not working. This is what you need to do next. This is why your analysis is wrong. So that student, when that first deal we looked at, if you didn't catch that first mistake, you'd say, man, it's worth 400. You offered 280. That's pretty good. But then you realize like, hey, man, no, you got to pay attention to all these little things. And then you find out, oh, my analysis was off by $120,000. And that makes a big difference. And then you come back, you say, Mike, this doesn't work. I can't sell it. I'm complaining. And it's like, no, that's the reason why. But the other thing we need to discuss is that, when you make an offer like that, let's say if we went back to that other example, right? See if I can remember numbers off the top of my head. They were asking 325, right? And he made the offer at 280. Now, let's say he went in and made the offer at 230, right? And they came back to him. You should anticipate that they're going to push back on you. And they're going to say, if they even respond, let's say you made it 250 just to make it like a little bit more in the ballpark. And let's say you said 250 and they say, no, my seller's not going any lower than that. Thanks. Well, then you can't just let it die. You have to say, let me ask you, is there you guys have a counter offer? No, we don't. Okay, then you need to pick up the phone. Okay. Hey, this is Mike. Listen, I sent that offer over. I just want to let you know that when I was looking at it, obviously I haven't been there, but we are investors very interested in the area. Now looking at the pictures, I kind of made some assumptions. I did want to stay on the conservative side of this, which is why the offer came in about 250. You give me this at 250, I can take it right now. But, if the seller's really stuck on that number, could you tell me a little bit more about this property? And I'll talk to my partner and see if we can come up a little bit. Okay, great. Do you have any other pictures that you could show me on this property? Okay, great. Now, let me just explain to you. I know the number price seems a little crazy. I know maybe you get some lowball offers. But again, I'm not an owner occupant. I am purchasing this for an investment, and I'm just show you like here are the comps that I found, and here are the distressed comps in the area. Here are the active comps what other properties are going for, and then you selectively pull out kind of the lowest ones, right? So as you can see, this one's 180, this one's 220, and so looking at that, I have to account for my hard money costs or my holding costs, my closing costs. We are going to flip this one most likely, so I've got to anticipate realtor commissions. So as you can see, like my numbers, I'm not just throwing you, some bullshit offer. This is kind of the ballpark I need to be in. Now, if the seller truly can't do it, that's fine. But let me ask you, are there higher comps maybe where you can show me that I can show to my partner, and maybe we can come up on the offer a little bit? And then if they do send you higher comps, then you can bring the offer up a little bit, because then you can take those higher comps they showed you, and those are the comps you can use to show to your end buyer. In a lot of cases, they won't be able to do that. They're going to start sending you crazy comps from 2 miles away, because the average realtor, the way they're trained to do a CMA, the market analysis, it's different from how an investor looks at it. And they will send you properties and comps from 2 miles away. They'll show you stuff like that, property built in 2023, to which you have to come back and say, thanks for sending these. Now, actually, these are not going to be appropriate because they're too far. So what I'm looking at is this: is there any potential, any place, any realm of possibility where we can get this done? Let me ask you, is the seller, in a rush to leave this thing? I mean, if we had to get this under contract today and I could get you out of the property in 2 weeks, all cash, no repairs, as is, you're getting 100% commission, I'm not working with a realtor, is there a number that we could get this done today? And then a lot of times, then you'll get, I don't know, and then again, you sweeten it for the realtor. Then it's like, okay, let me go back and talk to him. And a lot of times you get your deals through there. But sometimes they'll say, no, this seller's not going to do it. Okay, well, listen, I'm not working with a realtor. I'm looking to purchase a property every 2 months. If you can find me something, you're welcome to 100% of the commission. Now you're, speaking their language. Now they're eager to work with you, right? So if you could get me anything like that, I'll email you my criteria, send it on over. I'll take a look. I'll be able to make a decision in 48 hours. Okay. How's that sound? Sound good? And you can even, there's obviously, that's me giving you the gist of it, but you could go deeper and deeper and layers deeper into that. But a lot of you guys are just making the offer and then they say no, and then you're like, this doesn't work. And that's why you need to be here and bringing me these deals that you're looking at, and bringing me the comps and showing me how you're analyzing the property and how like how you're looking at it. And I'll tell you and I'll coach you. And that's why we do so much role play, to really understand how that you go back and renegotiate these things. All right, does that make sense, guys? All right, cool. So this is going to be more or less like a mini I guess live that we did today. We will do another one when we have our whole group here and be a little bit more in depth. We'll do a couple more examples. But if you guys have any questions, last call for questions now. And if not, make sure you guys put them. You don't have to wait till we do our weekly call. You can put those in the Facebook group. Let me know. I'll jump on. I'll do a live and we'll knock it out, so you could kind of get answers to those things relatively quickly. But again, the role play, the talking through the obstacles, the anticipating the obstacles, all very, very important stuff. Okay. So thanks for attending, guys. I know we had a small group today, but hopefully that helps you out. Again, questions in the Facebook group. The recording, I'll put this recording up in our in Wholesaling with Mike University. And until then, have a wonderful weekend. Be productive throughout the week. And I guess I'll talk to you guys soon. All right. No last questions. All right, cool. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Talk to you guys later.